but triggers are actually teaching us on how to grow. That's all they are. They're teaching us how to become better.
Hello everyone, this is Business Ventures. I'm your host Javier. I wanted to let you know that we're within the seasons. I want to also do like episodes where we talk about wellness, mindset, just anything that like can help entrepreneurs, and also just anyone that feels like they have too much on their plate, or just, I want to be able to bring episodes like this so we can kind of bring you back or refresh and all that. And so I have a really great episode with former neighbor, just kidding, friend Lauren. She is great great friend, and she's also just amazing person. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself and go from there, and hopefully it was something that she's gonna like, because I don't know how it's gonna go. But all right, Lauren.
Okay, so thank you for having me. Super excited. So I like that you're bringing this in for the holiday, because obviously Christmas coming around, a lot of people are struggling emotionally, whether they don't have family or they've had loved ones pass away. So what I do is, I'm actually a nurse full time, but I do breath work also. And so I do it for the community, and so I do it as a donation base only, which I love, because then it kind of keeps that pure energy going of just serving others. So what breath work is you're hyperoxygenating your body, and you're breathing at a pretty quick rate. And what it's doing is you're changing the pH in your blood, and it kicks off your thinking brain or your conscious brain, and your subconscious brain will kick in. And that's where like all of our memories, our triggers, our sometimes traumas are stored. And so you're able to work through things quicker. But also the cool thing about breath work, specifically for people that are doing it for a physical benefit, it's really great to clear your mind. So I do a lot of corporate events, and we do it in our basement. We can hold 20 people. And a lot of people will just come because they're like, hey, I have finals next week, and I have to be able to just kind of clear my mind. Because what it's doing is we're hyperoxygenating our brain, and we're hyperoxygenating every single cell in our body. And we already don't breathe normally during the day. Like we should be deep breathing consciously, but we don't. We just kind of shallow breathe. And so when we don't do that on a cellular level, it affects us, and that causes depression, anxiety, and it just makes things more anxious in our body. So that's kind of what breathwork is.
So two things. So what made you kind of start this? Like, has this journey always been like part of you, or
no?
Just recently? Can you go?
Yeah. So about a year ago, I was like super depressed. I suffered from depression, anxiety, and I was in kind of just like a really dark spot in my life. And I discovered plant medicine. And I did that, and that totally opened up my mind to the world of healing. And a girlfriend of mine was like, you should go to a breathwork class. And I was like, what is that? And she's like, you're just deep breathing, and it can kind of help you work through some other stuff. And I was like, that's weird, but I'll try it. It was free. So I was like, let's go. This girl was having a free class. And it blew my mind. It changed everything for me. It was... So with breath work, you're resetting your entire nervous system, and your parasympathetic, it's all very science-based. Like, what's his name? Andrew Huberman. He does, I forget his name, but yeah, he talks about breath work all the time. And so it resets your nervous system. And so when I went that night, it sounds kind of crazy, but because you're hyperoxygenating, you can hallucinate.
Oh, wow.
Or you can kind of like leave your body. Yeah. And that's what I did. And it was the coolest thing for me. Yeah. I was there specifically like to work on self-love, and it was the best. And then a couple months later, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get certified, and I'm gonna freaking heal the world. Like, and it's not even about money for me. I'm like, I'm just gonna offer it to people, donation based, and I've seen really cool experiences. Very cool experiences.
Yeah, so. And is it, I know within classes and even within work, stuff like that, right? They have like someone that comes in and does breathing.
Yeah.
And they kind of tell you, okay, picture yourself in the field and stuff like that, right? So I kind of started, as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, I've without realizing I have been in those classes, because it's like, you're just like taking that time, closing your eyes, relaxing, getting into that like space where you feel free and you feel safe, And then the one thing that I really like that with the guests here so far, and just myself personally, is that we're doing these things, these services, without monetary, right? We're not like, hey, like, how much can I make out of this, right? But I think that's the person that you are, is eventually is like, still picking up and how it developed, like you'd be some, great person that people will start coming more into your classes and donations and all that. So I really like that side where it's like, you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for everyone else and make everyone better. Because, from what I heard, it's like being in a dark place or being in not a safe space, it's hard.
And not everybody can afford it.
Yeah.
Like, some people are like, they're in a dark place because they just lost their job. Or they can't, like, some people just can't afford it. And so I'm like, dude, just come. And even if you don't even have to donate anything, just come and like work through your shit. And I'll be there for you to help you work through it. So yeah.
What experiences, like, so far since you've been, how long you said you've been doing this?
I've been doing this for 8 months.
8 months? Yeah. What can you say, like, is a great experience that you experienced within that class? Like,
so I would say the most common thing that I see and the most rewarding thing is, so the type of breathing that I do, that I facilitate, it's called holotropic breathing. And so you can do like regular breath work in the morning where it's just like a 3 to 5 minute, like, but the one I do is 45 minutes of fairly intense breathing. And so, what that's going to do is the pineal gland is going to get activated, and that's where people like can see visions or they can hallucinate. It's almost like being on a mini mushroom trip. That's what most people would explain it. When they come out of it, they're like, that's kind of like being on drugs. Yeah. But except your whole body is doing it. So it's cool. The most common thing that I see is people are able to work, or they're able to connect with loved ones that have passed away. That's the most common thing that I see. So I just had a lady the other night where her daughter died like 15 years ago. And she kind of like did the whole hallucination thing. And she's like, for the first time, I got to like talk to my daughter. And then she called my niece that was helping with the event over, and she just hugged her. And she's like, and you became my daughter. So that's very common. And that is super rewarding when you can have people that are like, oh my gosh, like my dad passed away 20 years ago and I've never been able to connect with him. And so I love working. And sometimes it can be painful. Sometimes people are like, I was not ready to look at that, or I was not ready to deal with that. And the thing is your body's going to release whatever it wants to release. So I always give that disclaimer, like, hey, like if you're here to work through stuff, or if you're like, just be open to the whole process. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, that's great. Cause I thinking back, certain stuff in my life, it's just like, I wish, there's that part of like that healing process.
Totally.
Where I can just, bring it in, but also just like let it out completely, So, anyways, that's kind of really amazing stuff.
It's amazing. Like, I see the craziest stuff. It's really cool. And then, like, Forbes magazine came out with an article that was like, some of the most successful people do breath work every morning. And it's just a 3 to 5 minute, like, breathing in and out. And then it just kind of just clears your head, so that way you can think clearer, you can work better. And that's why we do corporate events. And we work at some colleges, especially around finals times. Like, teachers are like, can you please come in? And and you don't need anything. They literally, I'm like, if you want to bring a yoga mat, pillow, blanket, just lay on the floor. All I need you to do is breathe. And I bring everything. I bring the music, I bring the candles, I bring it all. Yeah. So
does that involve? I know you said kind of like a like a mushroom trip and stuff. Like, does that involve any type of like medicinal or no? It's just
it's literally So if you sit there and you just go and you do it for 5 minutes, you're already gonna start to feel like that tingle, and everything's gonna start to get a little like woo. If you do that for 45 minutes, usually people are going in and they're totally just like floating around 15 minutes. And it's all through breathing, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's
especially in this community where a lot of people are LDS, and that's where I get a lot of my clients is people that want to do plant medicine, but they're like, no, like I've never done, or I'm nervous to do that. And so then I'm like, well, come do a breathwork class and you'll be able to have a little taste of what that's like. And it's all natural. Like you're doing it completely yourself.
Yeah. So. You don't have to like feel bad about doing something that, you know, that's against your religion. Oh, totally. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you, so, you know, usually the question is like, what do you see yourself doing like 5 years, but it's not like that, right? But I mean, where do you see, you know, where do you see this going? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to, because I think it's all, since it's all about like helping the community, like what are your great plans for?
So my plans right now, so again, I'm a nurse. My plan is to get in every corporation and to keep doing it out of my basement. And it sounds so cheesy, but like we do it almost every Sunday and we have about 18 to 20 people come. And that is like so fulfilling that honestly, I just want to make it more well known to people. That's it. Like that, I know it's not really like a plan, but my plan is to get into every corporation and have them do this like once a month for their employees and just take care of their employees. So I don't plan to make like $1 million. Like I know most business people are like, I'm going to take over the world. And I'm like, I'm going to heal the world. Like I'm going to help everybody who's in a really shitty spot in their life. Because people have shown up for me in that way. And so I want to show up for people that way that maybe don't have those resources or don't have the money to do it. So.
You know, like, I was going to say would it be like, enhance like the class, like what would you say as far as like type of like plant-based, you know, I guess we can say weed and stuff like that and microdosing. Like what are your thoughts like behind those, like?
So I am a big fan of microdosing with mushrooms. Probably not for a breath work. You probably wouldn't want to take any like psychedelic before, because I've had people do that and it's almost like way too overstimulating, way too intense, because the thing is your body is already going into a psychedelic state, and so if you're on those psychedelics, it's going to be way too intense. Something that I have seen many times is usually people will take like a small edible or like smoke a little bit, and it kind of helps with, because with breathwork, sometimes your anxiety can kick in. Because when we're deep breathing, our nervous system is like, why the hell are we running? Like, what are we, our fight or flight kind of kick in. And that goes away. But it just helps people to relax. So I would say like the most stuff you could do would just be like marijuana. But I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that. But that's okay. I'm like, I don't know. So I would say nothing psychedelic. Definitely you could probably smoke a little or take an edible. And then I probably wouldn't drink with it because that would feel probably way too intense. But
there's like no wine waiting for like
totally. And then also I suggest to not eat about 2 to 3 hours before, because I've noticed that when people eat a lot before, they don't get a big as like a release, because actually what's happening when you're deep breathing is you can release DMT. That's the
DMT?
DMT. Yeah. A lot of people have that. And so I guess it's harder when you have food in your stomach.
Yeah, but I think I heard DMT because, oh my gosh, it was something about a dream, right? Isn't DMT?
Yeah, like, so DMT is an actual, so DMT, we can secrete it from our body, but it's actually a drug too that you can take. And that's the thing that like can make you like go into other dimensions for like 8 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
DMT, now that you mentioned that. So I heard somewhere, maybe like a TikTok or something, someone would take DMT and they would have their own life within that, I guess you can say, dream. Yeah. And then they could like have the kids married and stuff like that. They come out of the DMT and they're just like, where am I? Yeah. You know, I had this life and stuff like that. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy. So if you can get to a point where your body can release that, it's really cool. And it can totally trip people out. I will say for men, it's a little harder because naturally men are more guarded emotionally. And when you're, the most common thing that I see with breathwork is almost everybody cries, which sounds crazy. And you're like, why? But it's opening your your mind.
Yeah.
And so sometimes things will come in or you'll feel super emotional. With guys, it's a little harder to get there. Like Randy, it took him 3 times to finally get it. Like first 2 times he was like, this is bullshit, it's not doing anything.
You're like, what are we doing?
Like, just try it again.
Yeah.
So yeah. But.
Well, so when you saw that, like as far as like within your classes, you know, is that kind of what you tell people? You tell your what do you say?
Clients or whatever. Yeah.
To expect those type
Yeah,
of.
I give like a whole like 15-minute spiel. I tell them all the contraindications of to why not to do breath work. So people that cannot do breath work would be people that are pregnant, or if they have glaucoma, any major heart conditions, or if they've had any recent surgeries or injuries. And the reason that is because when you're breathing, it's literally sucking out all the oxygen and it's putting it all right here. And so your arms and your legs will have a tendency to go numb.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So if you have an injury, then oxygen's not getting to that. There's no blood flow going there. So yeah, I'm always like, please sign my waiver. I want to make sure everybody's safe. Like, yeah.
Oh, so that's crazy. So there's more than to it than just like.
Oh yeah.
Breathing, you know.
Totally. Yeah, I've had people. It's very rare. I've only seen this like one time, but some people will have like a complete nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And it's just because there was a lot of heavy stuff that they were like, oh my gosh, like I saw this and I felt this. But yeah, other than that, it's very, very safe. The breath work that I do is very, everybody can do it. Kids, I let kids come, but they have to be over the age of 10.
Okay.
And yeah.
Can you walk us through like you know, like the start of the class towards the end, you know?
Yeah.
And like with just kind of what people would experience at the beginning
Totally.
towards the end, and kind of like what you also what's the take home, like is there any type of like take home stuff, like your homework or just you know with that?
Yeah. So usually for the class, I'll pick a subject that I want to focus on. So like last week was on appreciation. So in the beginning of the class, it's cool. You'll have to come sometime. I think you'd like it. It's actually really
interesting,
cool.
And I love it. So
so I have an unfinished basement, and I just put white curtains all the way around, and I put like white greenery, and I have like surround sound, and I have like lights, and it's really cool, right? So usually they'll come down and they'll set their stuff down, and I have like cute music playing, and then I'll do my intro, and I just tell them kind of what breathwork is, the contraindications, what to expect, and then I just turn all the lights off, and then I turn the music up super loud. And what that does is it allows people to completely go in and not feel like, oh my gosh, the lights are on and the music's loud, and so I don't want to cry, or I don't want to... Right, so it creates this like really safe space for people to just kind of let go. And then we'll have them breathe for about 45 minutes. And during that whole time, I'm walking around and it sounds kind of weird, but I'm actually like touching people on the head or on the shoulder or the hand. Because most of the time it can get super like emotional for people. And usually it's all very beautiful most of the time. But yeah, like I usually will just sit there. I'll hold their hand. I can always tell when somebody's like feeling really distressed or if they're anxious, or maybe they're just working through something really heavy. And I always tell my clients to raise their hand if they need anything. And so sometimes they'll just be like, can you hold my hand? Like I'm working through like my divorce, or I'm working through this and it's really painful. And so I'll just sit with them and I'll just hold their hand. And so then the breath work will finish, and I usually have them lay there for about 10 minutes after, because your body you literally just like reset your entire nervous system. And so most people feel very relaxed, like almost like you're floating on a cloud, like very euphoric. And so I let them lay there for 10 minutes. And then I usually will talk about the subject that I want to talk about. So appreciation. I talk about like triggers on, like I just talk really about emotional things that people don't ever really talk about, or that might feel uncomfortable, but I'm like, no, like let's talk about it. So I usually do that for like 10-15 minutes while they're just kind of like laying there and relaxing, and then I give them an opportunity to share their experience if they want to, because sometimes it's very intimate and they're like, I don't want to share anything that I just felt or saw. And then other people are like, yeah, give me that microphone. Like, I always say the more that people can share, the better.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people leave or like they come out of it and they're like, oh my gosh, like I just felt and saw so much. Like, I don't even know how to comprehend it. And so it's really helpful when people can talk it out.
Yeah.
And then also it helps other people because they're like, oh my gosh, like I felt that same thing. Like I thought that I was going crazy or I thought that wasn't normal. So yeah. And then I just tell people like, you guys can hang out for the next, 30 minutes, hour. And usually people will like get in like little huddles with their friends or like people will just start to connect with other people. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And so it's cool because breathwork can also really connect you to yourself, but it can connect you to everyone else in the room that's like kind of experiencing that same type of energy. And so usually people will just kind of like mingle and I just keep the music on. And yeah, like I have some moms that are like, I just want to come and get away from my kids for 2 hours. Yeah. And I'm like, totally. I'm like, just come and hang out. I'm like, you don't have to leave till 9:30. So
it's like your heart ringing someone. It's like, come on in. It's like, hurry up.
Oh, you had a bad day, girl.
I know.
Take a mat.
Yeah. But it's, oh my gosh, I had it.
No, you're good.
So yeah, I kind of space on certain things. Because when they share with other people out there, right? There's bringing them closer together, but I guess that's not it. Hold on.
No, you're good.
So I was gonna say I liked it because when you start talking about like divorce, right? Especially like in Utah, I don't know how high the rate is, but when you start talking about it, it's having to go until that person it starts with self-love.
Totally.
Than anything else, right? Because you can start like trying. I was like, to go and be like, what did I do wrong with my marriage? Like, what what happened? Was it me? Was it them? Blah blah blah. But not until you start realizing that it's self-love that happens first. Yeah. I guess I'm just assuming I'm saying it.
That's
like,
where it all starts. Is in here.
Yeah. It's and I tell people that I heard like that I've gone through divorce. I'm like like just self-love and don't worry about anything. I have a good friend of mine. She gone through divorce and I just had to be like, yo, like just start loving yourself, because once you do that, it's, and then I would just try to help, which is funny. Sometimes you give some advice that like you yourself don't really take it.
That's, totally.
And so I told them like, I'm going to give you advice, and like, I know it's something that, that should kind of correlate to me, but I don't do it, whatever. But just here it is, totally. And just take it however you want it. I'm not going to be mad if you don't, but I just had to share it out there,
Yeah.
And I like that because it's me giving some either personal experiences or just trying to make my friend feel more calm and just start loving herself.
Yeah, I do put a lot of focus on themselves as an individual. Like I always say before we start, I'm like, this is your time. This is nobody else's time. So you don't have to worry about your kids. You don't have to worry about your husband, wife, your partner. You don't have to worry about work. You don't have to worry about school. Nothing. I'm like, this is all you. Because the moment that you can kind of let all of that go, then you can start loving yourself. And like, I'll usually go around the room and I can just kind of like I'll whisper in people's ear, like, this is your time. Like, worry about yourself. You're beautiful and don't worry about anybody else, because how are you going to be able to take care of other people unless you're taking care of yourself? Yeah. And that's why I love to go to businesses, is because in the corporate world, this is not something that's like a thing, right? But hundreds of companies practice breathwork. Like some ones that we know are NASA, Google, LinkedIn, CNBC did a whole special for the month. I don't know if it was November. I don't know. They did a whole special on breathwork and how it's such an ancient practice that's been going on for centuries, but we're now just like starting to pick up on it again. And so I love going into the business world because they're very like, this is weird. Like, this is kind of like woo-woo stuff. And I'm like, let me just teach your class one time for free. No donations, nothing. I'm like, just give me one chance. Yeah. And I do it to their employees. And every time they're like, whoa. Yeah. Like, that literally was mind-blowing. And then I'll follow up with them a week later. And they're like, oh my gosh, like our team is getting along. They're not so stressed anymore. Yeah. They're more creative. They're innovate. Like they're more productive. It totally like shifts everything. And then that's usually when I get them is through that first class. And then they're like, okay, can you come back once a month? And like, this
That's
will
so
just be
awesome.
part of our wellness program.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And you know, like because I know there's some companies that like talk about wellness and like, oh, we're here for the employees.
Yeah.
But I feel like those ones that say yes to, you know, breathing classes and stuff like that, they actually are there to, you know, support their staff.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's one thing saying it, but then also not like
doing it,
you know?
Yeah. Well, and I feel like a lot of the wellness programs that they like have at work are like, oh, like here's a gift card to like Chipotle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but what are we doing for what are we doing for the mental health of our employees?
Yeah.
Like, are we just like putting like little band-aids on things, or are we actually, but the thing is that's also kind of an awkward thing, right? Like your boss isn't going to come up to you and be like, how are you really feeling?
Yeah.
Like, tell me how your divorce is going. So it's cool with breath work. Like, you don't really have to do any of that. It's like, hey, like just go to the class, you know, and it's an hour long, hour and a half at the most.
Yeah.
And like, it's just, it resets them, you know?
But I also, with the classes, I think like if you're, you know, making them work as well, no, sorry, I was gonna say, when you bring an outside person, right? Because they might have their own wellness programs within their business, but I feel like bringing the outside person, a third party, whatever, it's just like, you're just like, hey, I'm here just to make you guys feel, you know, like support you in your mindset, your wellness and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks more about, it's more self-healing than just having like Mark from your company come in and do it for you, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Because then like, oh, I don't want to.
Then there's an association of like, oh, Mark's on the HR team. Like, I don't want to lose my shit.
Oh, but we're here for you, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And so actually how I got some of these companies was I knocked on their door. I literally just brought like a little pamphlet of like my certification, the benefits of breathwork specifically for corporate people. And I just knocked on their door and I was like, let me just teach one class. And they were like, and sometimes they're like, yeah. And sometimes they're like, no. But once I get in there, they're like, oh my God. They're like, that was really great. Like, we want to have you come once a month. So,
yeah. You know, knocking on doors and just going to businesses. Yeah. Was there a time when you were just like when you're getting no's, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe it's not right for me.
Oh,
you know,
totally.
Because you know, right? Like,
of course.
I can relate to this, right? When I DM people, I message, I call them. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, sure. And then they just like ghost me.
They don't follow through. Yeah.
You're like, do I keep going with this or do I not? So how do you get past that?
So for me, I got all my material ready and then I just went on the map and I was like, I'm going to go to the major corporate things. So like Adobe, Weave, Podium. Like I just literally would just write it on a list and I just would knock on the door and I would try to talk to an employee or a manager. And I remember one day I was going like door to door. And I think it was like the 7th person that was like, yeah, no, like, this is kind of weird. And I'm like, damn. Like, I kind of left being like, maybe this is not something that, like, is not going to be presented in the corporate world. And so I kind of put it on hold because I was so just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then I just started getting phone calls like a couple weeks later where they're like, hey, like, how much did you say you charged? And I'm like, nothing. I'm like, it's free. I'm like, let me just come one time for free. And they're like, oh, it's free? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and then after we can do donation based or like you can charge whatever you want, your employees, and you can keep the money. I don't even care.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when it started to become a thing was because now that business is talking to this business. And now and because I work full time, I'm also a nurse.
Yeah.
So it's not like breathwork is my full time thing. Yeah. So I'm only able to do events like one time a week. And so now I have my companies that I work with. But yeah, it was very discouraging. I was like, oh, dang it. But I just realized if I just keep doing my classes at home, it's 20 people a week. And then when I go to these corporate events, if there's like 30 people in there, then those 30 people, it happens every time. Yeah. Those 30 people will tell other 30 people. And then the next class, it's totally different people. And they're like, oh my God, I got to tell my other coworkers. And so it's just this like, it's this never ending, like revolving income of people.
It like puts you back to like the focus of why you're doing it, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally.
So then you're like, oh, and you know, whatever some people's spiritual belief or might be, is then you're just you know, you don't have to. You're not worrying about it because now, like you said, people are talking to someone and they're talking to someone, and then you just have class.
Totally, and I don't advertise my stuff. Like I don't pay for advertising. And so what I do is I just post it on my Facebook, like the Saratoga Springs link or Saratoga Springs community page or Lehigh community page. I'll just post it on there. And people will come. They always tell other people. And most of my classes are people that are like, so-and-so told me about it. Yeah. And so it's all just through word of mouth. So.
Well, good, because I almost like spammed your account for like saying that you're. I'm just kidding. You're like, I know this isn't Lauren. Who is it?
You're like, wait a second.
I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned it, mental health. You know, I think, and especially how you also said that it's difficult for men. You know, it's not something that they're share. They do classes like this. Yeah. So how are you able to break through like to that, you know, the male side, like as far as like having them come to the class and having them just
be open? Open. That's I'm still trying to figure that out. Most of the guys that come to my class are like husbands of the wives that are like, ugh, I just got dragged here because it's our date night and she said that I have to come. And so usually when they're there, I try to be like as nurturing as possible, not like hitting on them, not like that, but I try to be as nurturing as possible because a lot of the times men aren't getting nurtured. It sounds really weird, but a lot of the times they didn't get nurtured as a child. And so a lot of the times when they're breathing, it's almost like their childhood stuff is coming through. And so I kind of just act as almost like a mother, like very nurturing and kind and loving, and that usually can get them to relax. But I'm still trying to figure how the hell to do that, because that's really hard. I like that's why I like corporate events, is because the majority of them are men. And so they're always curious. They're always like, huh, what is this? And I'm like, it's free. Just try it. Like you get to leave work for an hour and a half and you just get to breathe and that's it. Yeah. And there's music and they're like, okay, cool. Yeah. And you know, once I kind of get them in, then a lot of the times, if they don't get an emotional release, a lot of times they're like, I just feel super grounded. And like, I feel really clear. Like, I feel like I can just, I feel really good. And so, but I'm still working on that. I'll let you know when I can perfect that.
No, I like it, because I think I would be that person where I'm just like, well, it's free. I'm like away from like work for like X amount of hours or whatever.
But that's all I need though.
And that, you know, and then all of a sudden I go in, I'm like, what the fuck was this? You know,
totally.
Like I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't charge for it right now. Is because it's already uncomfortable for people to go into a class that they don't even know what it's about. Right? Like it's so easy to be like, okay, I'm going to pay for this purse. In exchange, I'm going to walk home with the purse. But with breath work, like you're not receiving anything like in the physical form. It's more in the emotional form, and that can be very uncomfortable for people. So that's why I'm like, just come and try, and if you don't like it, then you never have to come again. I rarely have anybody that's not liked it. Most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, people are like, holy shit, that was amazing. Like, when is your next class? Like, I have to tell my friends about it. And I'm like, yeah, cool, come back, I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. You say your husband also does it with you?
So my husband, he's not certified, but he does help to kind of, I guess what you would say, like hold space or just kind of be there for people. And then he also does Reiki. So it's like energy work.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so that's like on a whole other tangent. But so he does that also. And so we work together. So while people are breathing, he'll just help to kind of align the energy while they're breathing. So
that's pretty awesome. And I brought it up because I usually, when you're starting like businesses or just like any type of service work, you know, it's having that support of
totally
spousal support.
Oh yeah.
And just hearing about, especially like, you know, Randy just being there and helping.
Yeah, he's there every class. He's always supporting me, always.
And it just speaks like that person that he is, you know, so caring and that's awesome, you know.
Yeah, I love it. I'm always like, because you need a good supportive partner when you start a business. And the thing is this isn't even as big as starting an actual business, right? And so when you start an actual business, you have to have that support, because then you're just kind of like floating on your own and it becomes super overwhelming. So he's great. I'm super grateful that he's supportive.
That's awesome. Yeah. When you talk to people, like what's something that like you can just tell them, you know, you can share to them and have them just release and just be free? Like, what's something that you would say to them? Like,
so I always tell people when we feel triggered or when things happen to us that make us feel a certain way, they always say, like, what you resist will persist. So what that means is, suppose something, for example, I was divorced and for a long time I didn't deal with it. I was like, nope, I'm just gonna like shove it down and I'm not gonna look at it and I don't want to deal with it and it's gonna go away. But the thing is it never goes away. And when we push things down, it affects us on a cellular level. And so it's not just emotionally it affects us physically. And so what I always tell people, if there's something that you're dealing with, but you're not actually dealing with it, like just deal with it and let it come out, because once it comes out, then you can release it.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
That's bars right there.
That's what?
Bars. What
is that?
When you say words and it means a lot, people are going to miss it, right?
Yeah.
But in a way, like you said a lot.
Oh.
That's
okay,
that's what it's like when people are like rapping and they like, oh my god, it's this bar. It's like they rhyme.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
But no, because for me, like I caught that, right? It's people dealing with it but not dealing with it.
Totally. They're just
so you have to deal with it, you know?
And
so
I always tell people, I'm like, just sit with it. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to cry. I'm like, but let it out. I'm like, because once you can cry and you can talk about it, then it's like instantly, like I have people that come to me that are like, I know that I haven't worked through my divorce. And I'm like, well, let's fucking work on it tonight. And they're like, but I am so nervous. I'm like, well, how do you feel every day? And they're like, I feel like shit. And I'm like, okay, well, are you dealing with it? And they're like, well, I feel sad, but I'm not actually like dealing with it or talking about it. I'm like, well, then let's work on it. And then they leave and they're like, oh my gosh, I cried and I screamed and I let it out. And then I follow up with them weeks later and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And I'm like, yeah, because it's been sitting there for so long. Yeah. Like it's never going to get out. And that's what breathwork does. It sounds crazy, but we're moving a ton of energy. And that's why a lot of people cry, people can scream, people can laugh. I have people laugh hysterically in classes for no reason. And it's just getting all that energy out. And it just, like sometimes you just have to feel it. Yeah. I'm all about feeling it.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't think it's crazy, right? Because you keep mentioning like it's something that you need to experience for yourself, right? And the reason why I do this is because I want your message. I want the things that you do for people, and just anything, like the type of person. So it's to me, I guess it's not like crazy. It's just like something that's needed,
Yeah. Oh, it's so needed.
But I feel like it might be like, oh, it's crazy because you know how people are gonna take it. But as we're having this conversation, I'm already thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be perfect for myself, like for this person that I know and that's going through some stuff,
Totally.
And they with themselves are like, first, I'm pretty sure like if I was to go up to my friends and be like, hey, like you need to do this, like why?
They'd be like,
I don't
that's
need
weird.
it, But I'm like, no, trust me, like.
Yeah. I forgot to mention also during the class, so I have a card that comes out and I give everybody a card and it has all of the physical benefits of breath work. So if you go into there and you get no emotional release, there's so many physical benefits with breath work. And also I have them pull like goddess cards. There's just like positivity cards that, like you can read through it and it kind of just like sets the tone for like how you want to feel. So, yeah.
And I like that because I had a friend at work who would have those, it's not affirmation cards, but it's like cards that would say something about that day, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I would participate in it just because I'm like, I want to make sure that person's having a good day,
Totally.
Because like, why am I going to take that away from them, So that's why
people love those cards. Oh my god, they love those cards. They're like, this one was made for me.
and I like it, it's like, so stuff like this is, I'm like, dude, like whether you believe it or not, like just try it out.
Yeah.
And be that person that you're just gonna not take that joy away from that friend, coworker. Yeah. Just let them be themselves and open up.
Yeah. Come to my class. It's free.
I know it's making me like show up, but it's like no cameras and stuff like that. I don't want to go. So don't tell me what happened, But,
no, like I would love if you come. Bring anyone you want.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like I always say, just try it. Like there's nothing to lose. It's not like you're like dropping $100. You're like, damn, I just walked away and I wasted money. Like you're just coming and you're breathing and See what happens.
All of a sudden you come with an iPad, you know, like how
I know,
they do
right?
the tipping, 10, 15, 20. It's like, what the fuck?
I'm like, wait, hold on.
It's like,
What's
you don't
happening?
Oh my gosh. And so I like to leave time for my guests, and also but I wanted to see what is something you want to leave off here, a message, an ad, whatever you want to do, but what is it, something that you want to leave to the listeners?
Okay. 2 things. So number 1 is finding appreciation in all things. It's super easy to feel not appreciative of the things that we have. So for example, I go to work at 4 a.m, and so my ass is up at 3:00 in the morning. And in the morning I'm like, damn, I hate getting up early. The moment you can switch it to appreciation, so it's like, damn, I hate waking up early, to, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I have a healthy body that can get my ass out of bed, and I have a car to drive to get to a job that I have that pays my bills. And so I always tell that to my class members. I'm like, you can find any shitty situation and turn it into an appreciation thing. And it'll change your whole outlook on life, right? Like, you can complain about, what's something you complain about every day?
Driving.
You have a car that you can afford to drive.
Yeah.
Right? You can turn any little thing. And that was like major game changer for me. The moment I did that, and so I tell all my clients, I'm like, I want you to take just one thing you bitch about every day. I'm like, and just switch it. And then the other thing that I tell people, which I feel like is helpful. So we talk about triggers. Triggers evoke these like emotional feelings in our body and in our mind and our soul. But triggers are actually elevating you to another level. And let me explain how that works. So my dad died when I was younger, right? And so I have like daddy issues, or like whatever you want to call them, right? And so I feel triggered with certain things, but triggers are actually teaching us on how to grow. That's all they are. They're teaching us how to become better. So if you have anger problems and like your wife does something that just sets you off and you just lose your shit, that is a trigger, and that's something that you need to work on to become better, to be a better husband, to be a better husband and father, to be a better coworker. So I always say, when you feel triggered, whether it's like through anger or through sadness or whatever, I always like take a step back and I'm like, why am I feeling so angry about it? Like, why am I feeling so distraught about it? And if you actually ask yourself questions, then you can almost like self-regulate. You can just be like, oh, okay, like I need to learn to be more patient, and that's something I need to work on. So people are like, oh, I hate getting triggered. I'm like, dude, feel triggered. Like, feel it, and then ask yourself the questions, and then kind of work your way through it. And naturally, you're just going to become better in life overall. That's my lesson. Appreciation and triggers.
Dang. it's a great way to, I know, like dropping all these mic bars down. At first I was like, I'll just give her 10 minutes on the camera. Just kidding.
You're like, this will go real quick.
It's like, yeah, I'll do like a, what do you call, a bonus episode. Just kidding.
Oh my God.
But no, I think just your message today and everything you talked about.
Yeah.
One, it's made me feel like awesome, right? Like why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And bringing such amazing people like you to share the message, to help them any way that I can, right?
Yeah.
And it's like how you mentioned, right? We're starting a lot small. Eventually, as what we do, the services that we provide, as they grow, and we're able to have a wider audience.
Yeah.
And I think that's why eventually I'm going to be like, yo, go back to this episode, go back to Lauren, you know.
Yeah. I love it. And the thing is with entrepreneurs or business owners, like, how are we supposed to take care of people, our employees or our families, if we're not taking care of ourselves? Yeah. It really starts with ourselves. That's why some of the bosses that are real assholes, they're not dealing with their stuff. And so they're taking it out on their employees. So that's why I'm like, dude, bosses should be doing breath work. They should be doing their own work, so that way they can show up better for their employees. So that kind of ties it into what you're doing. Yeah. So
damn. All right.
Yeah. Take care of yourself so you can show up for other people. We don't want an asshole boss. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you? How can you know.
Yeah, so I just created. Oh, I probably should have had this ready. Dang. Okay, I will. Let's see. So I have a Facebook page that I just started, but you can just find me under Lauren Harris or Lauren Aranda. But Lauren Harris would probably find me. I have two. It's sorry. It's like Lauren Aranda Harris. I don't even know. But yeah, you can just find me on Facebook and then shoot me a message. I really should have an Instagram.
Yeah,
but yeah, I really need to have like all that on lockdown. But I just have a Facebook page, and that's where I just post all my classes, and then yeah, Lauren Aranda.
So I'll go ahead and I'll put this on. Not usually. I always put these on the Facebooks or Instagram, social medias.
Yeah, I can send that
on
to you.
On the Apple and Spotify stuff. So I'll do that.
Yeah.
So that way people can also search through that. But then I will, do that referral as I see someone coming in or just like do networking events and be like, look, this would be a great stuff. So I think this is exciting and all that.
Yeah, I love it. I want to help.
So everyone, want to say thank you for your time here. Especially hope this message is going to help someone out there who might be going through some stuff and just needs to open up. So I can't say thank you enough for coming in and taking time this early. It's like 6 a.m. I'm just kidding. But,
I said no to that 7 a.m. slot. I was like, yeah.
But it's amazing, and I'm so thankful to have you here. So
thank you.
I appreciate Lauren and everyone. Thank you again. This is Visions to Ventures.